Welcome, welcome everyone. I hope everyone is coming today grounded and as well as possible given everything that's happening around us in our world. I'm Victoria Benson. I will be emceeing today. It's my honor to do so, and just want to give everyone a little bit of grounding and about this series and what we'll be doing today. And then I'll be passing it over to our amazing presenters and workshop leaders, Woods Irvin and Andrea Richie. So this is the third Visionary Frameworks workshop in a multi-session series that we have had to date. Last month, we had our second workshop with Sandy Ho and Dr. Holly Pearson on disability and intersectionality, on the Disability and Intersectionality Summit. Today, as I mentioned, we'll be with Woods Irvin and Andrea Richie of defundpolice.org. I'm super, super, super excited. And as I said, I'm Victoria, and I am stepping into this in collaboration with the Community Power and Policy Partnership team at the Othering and Belonging Institute, in particular on the Radical Imagination for Racial Justice Project. And I'd love to put our title slide up just so folks can kind of get a sense of what brought us here today, if possible. And also want to just give a brief description of the slide for folks that may benefit from that. So our title slide here shows a background of light orange fading to reddish orange with the words abolition, self-determination, disability justice, and intersectionality in the backdrop. In the top center, the title says, in Black text, Visionary Frameworks, a monthly online workshop series with organizers, artists, and researchers who are putting visionary frameworks for change into action. And underneath that, in an orange rectangle and in Black text, it says, all of us creating a community resource hub, defundpolice.org. And then underneath that, there are three images that are circles. So on the left, we see a photo of Woods Irvin, a Black non-binary trans femme person, brightly smiling with short, coily Black hair, wearing Black circular glasses and a dark t-shirt. In the middle, it's the image of the Defund Police, the police logo, which has colors yellow, Black, green, and red, and has people standing together on the top in unity, and also two hands holding each other in power at the bottom. And then on the right, we see a photo of Andrea Richie, a light-skinned Black woman with long, curly, dark brown hair, also smiling brightly, just like Woods. And then lastly, underneath, there's a logo of the Othering and Belonging Institute, which has three circles, different sizes, which are red, green, and blue. Thank you, and we just wanted to give folks a sense of what our kind of entryway into this conversation. And before we jump in and get to learn and discuss, I wanted to just share a little bit about this series for folks who are coming to this Visionary Framework workshop for the first time. Over the last year, the Community Power and Policy Partnerships Program at Othering and Belonging, aka OBI, has been working with artists on participatory action research projects that advance racial justice. This is part of a national initiative called the Radical Imagination for Racial Justice, involving dozens of artists and organizations around the country working with arts to advance racial justice. It's pretty exciting. I'm honored to be a part of it. It comes out of, this series comes out of that work. And the goal is to really shine a light on the incredible examples of how collective knowledge generation, arts, and cultural strategy all intersecting can really become these visionary frameworks and how we make them real. So if you're an organizer, researcher, artist, and allies, you are welcome out. And if you're learning and here, we're excited. And we are going to have about 2 more workshops this summer. At the end, we will talk about those. And again, today, we're really focused on exploring collective research and how it can be used in the prison industrial complex abolition movement. And then again, each of these workshops, I'm emceeing, but it's really led by the practitioners who are advancing these frameworks on the ground. And, I think that's it. I mean, we're in for a treat. And before we go into hearing about and from these incredible leaders, I want to give us a moment to do some land acknowledgements and a bit of housekeeping. And then I will step back and they will be moving in. So for housekeeping, we have ASL interpretation with Toy. If you can already tell, thank you so much, Toy. And then we also have live transcript enabled. So you can see the closed captions button. So it should be on, but if not, you can go in. And if you have questions about that, put it in the chat and my awesome teammates, Evan and Milana, will help. But you can turn the closed caption on and off depending on what you need. And then again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will address them. And also I see someone saying hello everyone. So yeah, if you want to say hi in the chat, say where you're coming in from, feel free to do that. It'd be nice to feel some connectivity, even though this right now is a little bit didactic. All right, so now we're going to jump into the land acknowledgement, and Evan is going to put in a link. So if you're not sure the land that you are on, that has been stewarded by the indigenous peoples for a millennia before we came, you can check out that link and it will help you find out the names of the tribes that steward the land that you are on. So with that being said, I just want to invite us to take a few deep breaths. So I'm going to be breathe in and out and in and out. You do one more time. You're going to breathe in energy and presence. And then breathe out distraction and stress. Okay. So this work happens on the unceded land from where I am and Evan and Milana and the OBI on the land of the Ohlone people, both in what is called Oakland and Berkeley. If you'd like to name the place that you're calling in from, if you found it in the link or you already know, we invite you to please name that as well. And I engage in this land acknowledgement both to acknowledge the land and the people who are its original and current caretakers. The land acknowledgement is a step towards the truth that the land is unceded, meaning it was taken, stolen, rather than given, and that there were grave harms that were enacted on Native people by means of taking. This is, again, a single step in a long journey of repair, not its end, and it's not a checkbox. Repair includes self-educating, learning about how you can support the work of local Native peoples and initiatives in your community, or the national campaigns like the Land Back by the NDN Collective that teach about and make progress towards the rematriation of everything that was taken, including land, language, ceremony, food, education, housing, healthcare, governance, medicine, kinship, spirituality, and more. So with that, I would like to close our land acknowledgement and just appreciate the peoples who have stewarded this land, their ancestors, and the peoples who are their descendants today. Okay, so now we're going to introduce our amazing presenters. What? So I'm really excited. I'm going to introduce Woods real quick, and then I'm going to introduce Andrea. I'm going to read their bios. Woods Irvin is a Black non-binary trans femme organizer that has been working for over a decade in movements both for trans self-determination as well as the prison industrial complex abolition. Woods has most recently worked with TGI Justice Project in the Bay Area. They engage in research in the prison industrial complex at Interrupting Criminalization, a recently launched abolitionist research project, which is you'll hear a little bit about from Andrea too. Her bio, and they are currently staff at Critical Resistance, which is an organization dedicated to prison industrial complex abolition. And I'm going to just put their bio in the chat. They also have an article up there if you want to check them out. And now I'm going to introduce Andrea. Now Andrea's bio, she said they made them make a really long one. So we're going to just read the first paragraph, which she also was like, just the first sentence. But I'm going to read the first paragraph and we'll put the bio in the chat too, so you can read more about the amazing things that she has done. So Andrea Richie is a Black lesbian immigrant survivor who has been documenting, organizing, advocating, litigating, and agitating around policing and criminalization of Black women, girls, trans, and gender nonconforming people for the last 3 decades. She is the author of Invisible No More, Police Violence Against Black Women and Women of Color, and co-author of Say Her Name, Resisting Police Brutality Against Black Women, Queer Injustice, the Criminalization of LGBT People in the United States, and the forthcoming No More Police, A Case for Abolition. She co-founded the Interrupting Criminalization Initiative with Marime Kaba, I might be mispronouncing that, apologies, as well as the In Our Names Network, a network of over 20 organizations working to end police violence against Black women, girls, trans, and gender nonconforming people. She currently hosts the Invest/Divest learning communities at the Community Resource Hub and supports dozens of organizations across the US working to divest from policing and invest in community safety. She has authored numerous research reports, articles, and opinion pieces on policing, criminalization, mass incarceration, and immigration enforcement. And there's a lot more. And lastly, before I pass it to them, I just want to model, I forgot this today. I want to share what I look like for those who would benefit from that description. I am a light-skinned Black woman. I have a head wrap that is like bright blue with some other bright colors in it, and I'm wearing a fuchsia t-shirt. And with that, let me make sure, did I do all the things? Yes, it's time to hand it over to Woods and Andrea so that they can share the amazing work they're doing. Thank you so much, and I will hand it over to y'all.
Hello. Can everybody hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Victoria, for that lovely introduction. My headphones are having a little bit of a struggle. Okay, as Victoria did. Okay, great. Great. So I'm going to start us off. Today we're sharing, Andrea and I are going to be sharing a little bit about the website defundpolice.org. Did that go into the chat? It did not. So I'm going to drop the link to the organization, the website in the chat. And then from there, perfect. Thank you, Andrea. So first, I'm going to start with a little bit of a video intro to the website. And then we'll talk a little bit about what the website is, how it came about, and some of the deeper pieces around the design, its utility, its purpose, and even like all the way down to the visuals that not just the visuals, but like the politics behind the visuals that we put as part of the put onto the website. I'll start the video really quickly. Actually, can I get the capacity to share video, please? Thank you so much. Hold on, let me make sure that I'm sharing the sound too. Okay. That can be. Okay. All right, here we go. Can everybody see the screen? Cool. I'm going to start playing now.
We all want public safety and to live in a world where our people are safe and free from violence.
What we have now is not public safety. How long can we stand by as over $100 billion a year is plowed into policing that kills, brutalizes, criminalizes, and cages our loved ones, and loots resources from the things we need to be safe?
We demand a world where everyone has access to everything they need, not just to survive, but to thrive. Like universal, safe, quality and accessible housing, healthcare, education, employment, income support, youth programs, public transit, libraries, clean air and water, and so much more.
Whether you are new to conversations about defunding police, thinking about how to start organizing for greater safety in your community, or deep in a campaign to pressure policymakers and elected officials at the local, state, and federal level to divest from policing and invest in community safety, then defundpolice.org is for you.
Defundpolice.org is a one-stop shop for organizers and advocates looking for tools, resources, trainings, legislation, and policies supporting campaigns to defund police and invest in our communities. Since May 2020, organizers in over 20 cities have generated hundreds of thousands of emails, testimonies, and petition signatures, secured divestment of over $840 million from police departments, secured investments of at least $160 million in communities, and canceled contracts for police and schools, saving an additional $34 million.
Learn more about how communities are organizing for genuine and lasting community safety, and how you can join us by exploring national and local legislation, tools and resources, chat with members of our team, and sign up for our newsletter and the latest defund and invest updates.
You can use this site to be inspired by campaigns from across the country.
Find legislation and policies that promote divestment from policing and investment in communities.
Use budget tools to calculate the cost of policing in your community and build a people's budget.
Find organizing resources from across the country, like reports, videos, toolkits, training materials, calls to action, and more.
Deepen your understanding of how to build genuine community safety through trainings and webinars. Connect with organizers who can support you in building a campaign to defund the police in your city or state through the chat function.
Defund police means divesting from institutions that kill, harm, cage, and control our communities, and investing in housing, healthcare, income support, employment, and community-based safety strategies that will produce genuine and sustainable safety for all.
Defunding police and investing in communities means more safety, not less. More resources and more effective tools and skills to prevent, interrupt, and heal from the violence. More and better options for survivors in communities plagued by violence.
Defunding police means less violence, less police violence, and less of the violence that police don't prevent or protect us from.
Let's build a world where everyone, including Black, Brown, Indigenous, migrant, disabled, trans, queer, low-income, formerly and currently incarcerated and unhoused people, can thrive. We can achieve genuine and lasting safety for all of us if we fight for it. So join this movement to defund the police and invest in our communities.
Excellent. That always gets me so pumped. Okay. Sorry, I came in to this call kind of like a rocket, and I didn't finish properly introduce myself. Woods, they, them. I'm a Black non-binary trans femme person, brown skin, glasses, Black curly hair, and against a white background. I'm currently in New York City or on Lenape land, and I look forward to continuing to have this conversation with you. I'm going to pass it over to Andrea And she's gonna tell us a little bit about this. As I'm sure you saw from the video, there's just so many resources that are just like super useful that are packed into this website. And so she's gonna talk to us a little bit about a tool that she generated in order to help people navigate to the resource they're looking for, and go from there. All right, Andrea, handing it off to you.
Thank you, Woods. I love that you came into this call like a rocket, because I know you were doing amazing things right before, and we'll continue right after this. I'm Andrea, I go by she. I'm fine with any pronouns. In addition to the description that Victoria gave, I'm wearing blue glasses today and a green dress and sitting in my living room in Detroit. On occupied, unceded Anishinaabe territory. And yeah, the point of the video was to get folks pumped about the site and kind of give them a teaser as to what's in it. We learned early on, I think from Wes Ware in New Orleans, that we get 15 seconds of people's attention on average on a website. So on average, people get to a website, spend 15 seconds, and then bounce unless they find something of interest. And so our hope was that the video would drag them in, give some context to what they were seeing there, and help them see what they could find useful on the site to keep them on there. And we were able to track, because when you're using websites, just know that people are surveilling you and how long you're on it and which pages you're on and what you're doing with them. So just know that. And it was a little creepy to be on the other side of that, but we could see that people were spending more time on different parts of the site than 15 seconds. So it felt like we won a little bit that way. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about how this came together, and then Woods and I will both talk about some of the imagery. But I just want to say that, the uprisings happened in 2020, and we all saw all the things, right? We saw people putting out statements, every corporation putting out a statement, every institution putting out a statement, everyone kind of jumping in to offer solutions and policies and stuff. And the other thing we saw was a bunch of different people being like, we're going to create a website for this movement to resource the movement. And the last thing we thought organizers needed, Wood and I have both been abolitionist organizers for decades, is 5 different websites that offered 5 different versions of what defund movements were about, that maybe offered conflicting information about different things, including how much of city budgets or whatever was going to police, and that would force organizers to constantly be searching like, wait, what website did I see that on? Where was the one that had the bill about the thing? Or what's the one that helps me calculate what we could be spending money on instead of cops? And we really had to herd everyone who had the idea of doing a website together and get everyone to invest in just one, and to do that in the interests of the organizers on the ground. And I really want to lift up the Community Resource Hub, because that's the organization that hosts the site. That's the organization that corralled everyone together and was willing to take on the labor of that and the investment in that, and working with designers and web designers and hosts and so on to hold the site, and that continues to resource and staff the site. So, and that's what the Community Resource Hub was created to do, which was created to build resources that could be shared across movements, to divest from policing and invest in safety. And so that's how it came about. But I want to name that then it became a collaborative project among the Community Resource Hub, Critical Resistance, Interrupting Criminalization, the organizations that Woods and I are part of, and also organizations like Policy Link and Law for Black Lives and Action Center on Race and the Economy and Alliance for Education Justice and Advancement Project. So all these groups were trying to think about making websites. And then, some other groups like the ACLU were like, we're going to make a website. I just had to keep being like, nobody make a website. Either jump in on this website or do something else. There's 20,000 lanes you could get in right now. Let's not all I kept saying it was like an orchestra. Like, we don't need 50 flutes because everybody wants to be up front with the shiny thing. Some people have to play the oboe, or if you want to play the flutes, let's at least all play them together or something. I don't know. So that's some of how the site came about and kind of the process of collaborating on it. And I'll toss it back to you. Yes, exactly.
Yes, one more. So that was super great, Andrea. And one thing I did want to also share, there's like a crew. By crew, I mean two attorneys who had been doing basically looking at the different campaigns that were popping up across the country and assessing what people were demanding, what orientation they were taking towards defund, right? And they were basically evaluating it along an abolitionist framework that originates from out of a blog post that Miriam Kaba of Interrupting Criminalization posted on her website in 2014 that inspired Critical Resistance to put together the infamous reformist reforms versus abolitionist steps to policing tool. And using that framework of the reformist reforms versus abolitionist reforms, we're able to draw together a map and of these different defund campaigns, which basically kind of formed the basis for the website that we ended up ultimately putting together, defundpolice.org. I just like a funny story in the midst of this as well is like when all of these websites were like the website battles were popping off, and CR rapidly bought the domain defundpolice.org because we knew, we were like our allies are coming, we're going to develop a website, we got the domain, and we're going to make that happen. And we were right. So we're able to start with that framework that this crew of people put together, and then with the partners that Andrea mentioned, eventually pull together defundpolice.org. And so Andrea, you're gonna walk a little bit through the tool for navigating the website, and then, okay, cool.
I am. And also just want to lift up that Critical Resistance had created with the URL that it had, like a list of resources that it had generated over the years around defunding and abolishing police, including the one that you just shared, Woods, and generously, turn that URL over. But then that also meant that we used Critical Resistance's materials that they'd already gathered over 20 years of organizing as kind of the center for the site, rather than sort of someone who's new to this work, sort of trying to structure a site for organizers. Just want to name that. And then sort of show you some things from the site. So one is, you saw it quickly in the video, but this is the thing here. Slide. This is kind of what's on the page. So this is the landing page. Some basic information. Then there's a carousel that has national resources, and then you can use a map to find local resources. You can go to legislation, training, etc. And then get updated as the site is updated by signing up for the newsletter. So just wanted to highlight the map particularly because we really wanted people to be able to see themselves in the movement, be able to, if you woke up one morning and were like, oh my God, I believe we should defund police, let me start an organization. We want to be like, actually, just see who else might be in your town already. Maybe go join them. See what other demands other people are making. See if there are gaps. If you're in Akron, Ohio, and you're like, I don't even know how to move this here because it's a just different place than New York, see if there's someone in a similar town or in Columbus or in Cleveland who's trying to move stuff so you can be in coordination with them. Or, you know, we have a messed up so-called liberal Democratic mayor in Chicago. Well, we have a so-called messed up so-called liberal Democratic Black mayor in San Francisco. Let's talk together. Let's figure out how we can address the I see you, Jenna, like how we can coordinate together about how to deal with these like fake ass so-called progressives. So for instance, so that's, I didn't mean to do that, I meant to go here. So then that's kind of why we had maps. And then the resources are organized, you saw a little bit, in ways that you can search by type of resource. So if you're like, yeah, I work with young people, they don't look at anything other than videos. If I send them a big report, they're just it's not gonna get read. But if I can find a really good video or TikTok, you could just search on the site and on the organizing resources and click on videos, and all you'll see is videos. You're like, we need a toolkit. We need something that's gonna walk us through how to build a campaign. You can click on toolkit. You want a poster to put up in your place, click on poster. You're like, we need to do a survey of our community to think about what safety looks like. Click on research and you'll find those things. So we knew that it was overwhelming and we wanted to be able to find what they needed quickly in that 15 seconds, right? And then if you're like, all of this budget stuff gives me a headache because math. So I want to focus on the police contract. I like to fight about labor stuff and I like to fight about contracts. You can just click on that subject matter. Or you're like, I can't mess with all this. I just want to figure out how we build safer communities. You can click on community safety. So there's different ways that information is categorized. So we hope that would be an entry point for folks. But then we realized it's still overwhelming, because the thing about 2020 and the uprisings is that people just threw a bunch of resources out there, including the site, and even with the map and the search function and the different pages, you might be like, okay, this is beautiful and a lot, but how do we use it? So we put together this tool. I'll drop the link in the chat after I stop talking, but we're just like, okay, it's budget season. Where do you start? Go to budget tools, find out how much police are spending in your city. There's a thing called cost of police. Find your city, find out how much it is, find out what percentage it is of the budget, say, why are we spending 40% on police? Then you can figure out how that compares to other cities in your state or of similar size by going to another calculator that's the police department size calculator. And then you can say, Berkeley's got 3 times as many cops per person as Casper, Wyoming, or whatever, right? Why might that be, right? And why should we have that? Then you can look at how much your police department budget's gone up, so price policing in your city. And you can also look at how much your prison budget and courts budget and everything has gone up over the years. All the graphs look like this. And then you could be like, oh, so the budget keeps going up and violence keeps going up. Something's not matching here. And then the spending and police personnel over time. So you just it's telling you what the different budget tools can use, and you figure out where the stats are that are most useful for there. And then you think, what could we be doing with this money instead? And then there's another calculator there that helps you figure out, well, we've been trying to build this youth recreation center where people can have something to do after school and get food and learn to unlearn toxic masculinity and learn to vogue or whatever it is that you want to do with this program. And you can price it out and create something that you can print off and take to your meeting with council members, being like, this is what we want. This is how much the cops are costing, is what we want instead. We've printed out these things for you. Look at them, you have a proposal. Or you can create a whole people's budget. And then if you want to learn how other cities have passed laws that help move these visions and goals forward, you can go look at the legislation. You saw on the quick scroll through that there was one from Berkeley around, I think, getting cops out of your schools. So look at like, what did that resolution say? How do we word our resolution? There's also information on like progress around, did it pass? Did it stall? Where is it now? So you can find that. And then you're like, okay, great. We know what we want. We know what we don't want. We know what we want. We know what kind of policy or law we want to use to make the change we want. How are we going to make it happen? Go to those organizing resources, figure out, do you need a toolkit? Do you need a public education or political education curriculum? Do you need a survey for your community? Do you need a poster? What do you need that'll help you connect? So that's kind of how you use the site. And I'll stop sharing for now and put it back over to Woods.
Right on. Thanks, Andrea. Super, just so many good things in there. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the visual politics behind the site, as you saw in the video, as you saw from the tool that Andrea just showed you. There's lots of like vibrant colors. There's lots of people like protesting. There's lots of people showing care for each other, showing lots of joy. And I wanted to give a little bit of clarity on like how we arrived at what the site looks like when, given the purpose of the site. And so we basically rooted the visuals in the some of the practices that CR moves with in terms of our visual language when we put together materials. We basically, we always, we put a premium on never like visually representing the tools, the tactics, the forces that make up the prison industrial complex, prisons, policing, courts. We don't do that specifically because those things oftentimes have so much visual representation in our culture, whether it be on television or cartoons, et cetera, billboards. And so when we're talking about the work that we're doing, we want to actually show that the work of defunding police is actually about bringing people together, is about fighting for the things like were mentioned in the videos, like housing, healthcare, community care, community well-being. And so we made sure that no cuffs, no cages, no instances, no demonstrations of violence being wielded by policing against Black and brown and poor people. We wanted to make sure that the vision that we see when we think about defund police is the future that we want, and make sure that it looks irresistible, right? And so I think that we did go through a process where we did have to struggle with some of the organizations at the table around this. We did also need to like end up needing to struggle around the representations of like the who was actually represented from that made up the community as well, because oftentimes Black women, Black girls, Black trans people don't get represented when we're talking about policing, when in point of fact, we know about the high rates of policing in those communities. And so knew that it was really important to move visual representations of people from these communities forward as part of the visual language of the website. We also wanted to sort of more broadly, for the sake of, I think, clarity, wanted to try and set up like a visual language that wasn't just appealing, but drew people in and was very clear on how to navigate things. I think that those were the major pieces. Oh, and what I didn't say in terms of the framing is that we at CR, but also more broadly in this movement towards defund and abolition, take art and visuals and cultural work very seriously. We think of it as a terrain on which to struggle and shift people's hearts and minds. And I think that's why we take the politics of the visual politics very seriously. And that's what informed our decision around why we chose what we chose for the site. Andrea, do you have anything that I missed that you want to make sure that we land going before we move to Q&A?
Just two more things. One is to reinforce what you're saying about who was represented. The first iteration of both the video, and we intentionally made that video, as I said, to draw people in, and also images on the site, had quintessential subject of police violence and leadership of movements against police violence. People who appeared very clearly to be Black men, read as cisgender, read as heterosexual. And that was created by Black women, queer, and trans people. And we had to be like, no, we're not doing this. And I think particularly there was an image of someone who read as a Black cis straight man getting pepper sprayed and milk in their eyes. And we had just seen a picture the day before on social media of a 12-year-old girl in the exact same situation, young Black girl, pepper sprayed, milk in her eyes. We're like, why are we not using that? Why are we using this image from, another protest when there was one from yesterday? And so we really had to push. And then you saw that we also had, Black women, queer, and trans people in leadership roles, and visibly queer people in leadership roles. The other thing was we wanted to make sure that visibly trans and gender nonconforming people were both represented as folks who were targets of police violence and in resistance. And so you saw video from the Trans Liberation March in Brooklyn and elsewhere. And we did get some pushback from other Black, queer, and trans folks who were saying we don't want trans folks to always be represented as enumerated, as subject of violence. We feel like that reproduces Black trans people as appropriate subjects for violence. And so we really need to do something else. And so we were trying to sort of juggle, how do we represent the reality that Black women, queer, and trans people are subjects of state violence without reproducing and normalizing and reifying that as the reality that we then kind of don't notice. It's kind of the wallpaper of our lives. And so I just want folks to know those were struggles that we were in among people who all identify as Black, queer, and trans people, trying to make the visuals for this site. The other thing I wanted to say about it is that the red, black, and green was very intentional, because one of the pushbacks for the movement was that it was white led. It was led by gentrifiers and people who didn't actually have experiences of violence, and that Black communities didn't want defund. So we were trying to send a message through the visual of the site. This was blackity black, like Black leaders, Black people making the site, Black people leading this movement. And then to Woods' point, we wanted to make it look really lush and tropical, and to this point about visionary sci-fi. We want the world to be seen as very lush and nourishing and warm, etc. So that's, and then even when we made the video, we made the sound like we were moving through lush vegetation. So those are the only things I wanted to add, and then we can go to Q&A. Woods,
those are great things
questions you want to answer?
Okay, so it seems like there is, I did see a question in the chat. And by all means, if folks have questions, either drop them in the chat or please drop stack in the chat and we can get to you. I think there was at least one question that the resource was circulated. That's great. And then someone asked for us to speak to the prison abolition work is sci-fi, or imagining another world. I mean, I think I can speak a little bit to this, and I can pass it off to Andrea as well. I think that there are a couple things, like one, I think that like all sort of liberatory organizing is like in some way like a sci-fi, like you have to imagine a world that doesn't currently exist, and then like orchestrate forces in order to bring it into being. And I think that there's like a way in which, not to sort of wax poetic too long, is like that I lean into the sort of both when thinking about the sort of question of sci-fi, thinking about the sort of both the science and the fiction of it, or the science and the art of it, where like that's kind of what organizing is. Like we're out there, we like take our best knowledge, we're testing our best knowledge around bringing PIC abolition into being, and we are using our maximum level of creativity to imagine tactics, solutions to new problems as they arise, asking better and better questions. And I know that maybe is not as much of the invitation or the like beautiful vision of PIC abolition, but I also think that there is the sort of gorgeousness of organizing towards PIC abolition too, that I wanted to bring to the forefront there. Yeah. So that's what I think in terms of that response, that question. I want to see, Andrea, if you had a response that you also wanted to bring to this, or would you like to move to another question?
I think my internet's janky, so stop me if it's too much, but I want to lift up the piece of Walida work, and there's looking for this Dreams of Liberation Day anthology. Have I frozen?
We can hear your voice more or less. Maybe try turning your video off. And well, now you're frozen but smiling. Yeah. Do you want to try turning your video off and then see if that helps?
Yeah. Does that help?
Say more things.
Is that helpful?
Keep going. Yeah, no, I think it is. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so yes, someone mentioned Walida Amarisha's work. I just dropped, I think, in the chat something called an anthology, Memories of Abolition Day, which is something that Wakanda Dream Lab put together. But all that to say, just a hearty yes, that we absolutely need visionary fiction in order to be able to imagine the world beyond the one that we live in and imagine beyond our conditions. I also wanted to answer the question about submitting stuff and whether we have a vetting process. We do. Maintenance happens daily, and it's staffed by the Community Resource Hub. Kelsey from the Community Resource Hub is actually on the call. But the hub currently staffs it by folks maintaining the site, updating it every day, sending a newsletter out every month with new resources that are on the site, and then everything that comes in is vetted to make sure that it conforms with the politics on the site. the other thing I wanted to say, for folks who are posing all these strategy questions in the chat, like, my person said this to me, or my mayor said that, or what do you do when your city manager is sleeping with the cops, literally, or all these really important questions in the chat. I don't want to punt on those because I know we're running out of time, but I do want to invite folks to join the learning communities that the Community Resource Hub hosts every month, where we have exactly those conversations. And so I put information in the chat about how to sign up to learn more about those. We also vet folks who want to come into there. It's not a public space, so you won't see it on social media, but once you're in the learning community, you can be part of those conversations. So that's my quick answer to the questions. We did include, just sorry, Allison, I saw your question about colonized territories. There's stuff in there about organizing in Puerto Rico, at least. Woods, you want to take some more questions?
Sure. There's Heidi's question here about the platform that's recommended to generate a similar resource hub, but maybe on a different topic, with some of the details about the radio button, navigation for topics, types, etc., and the standardized display with region actor types. I think, Andrea, you're on the back end a lot, so maybe you have a sense of like, what are the what are the different plugins that you want to bring in for this as well?
Really? You want to ask the person who didn't have internet until college what what the plugins were?
Heidi, we will get back to you.
I know there's like a Google Maps plugin, but yeah, I don't know what the radio buttons and all of that, how that happened. It happened magically behind a curtain.
I think we maybe have time. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, do one more. I wish we had more time, but definitely do one more, and then we'll close out.
Right on. Thanks, Victoria. So this question around how does the research part mesh with the activism organizing part so that it's community-led research? What does the movement want to learn about defunding that researchers can contribute to? I think that there's always a call for the organizing, that folks who are doing organizing on the ground, what they're learning to be shared on the defund.org website, and through Andrea mentioned the organizing communities, that like they're like the resources that are being generated by different defund campaigns that folks want to make sure get shared out and circulated is also a place through which some of that can get negotiated as well. So like offering a resource and then sharing it on the website.
I can just respond to this one by Kathy quickly about all these DAs and corruption and etc. We are about to launch a site, Interrupting Criminalization, Critical Resistance, and Community Justice Exchange on defunding courts. And that'll have lots of resources for folks who are trying to figure out what to do with prosecutors and DAs, etc. There's a newsletter you can sign up at when you go to interruptingcriminalization.com, and you'll find out more about the defund courts website launch, which is July 28th.
Thank you. Y'all are just a wealth of information. This was so incredible. It was like the combination of like weaving in and thinking about like strategy of how do you do this all together, and also like very like how do you actually use this, and like very like kind of like grounded. So I really, really appreciate it. And from all the questions and all the people, it's very clear. People are really hungry for this. So thank you for nourishing us. I very much appreciate it. And I will just say that on behalf of folks, and feel free if you have appreciations or anything you want to put in the chat for Woods and Andrea, please do, they're working hard. And also check out in the chat because Evan will be dropping in an evaluation. So that really is helpful for us because we are continuing to curate these beautiful conversations and wanting to, continue to get feedback on what's working really well and like ideas and how we can keep making it better. And again, just want to appreciate you all for just also the conversational energy that you brought to this, like really accessible, really comfortable. We've got like 200 plus people on here and y'all are just like, it's like we're having conversation at a table. So really enjoy that too. That being said, I want to just highlight that on the 27th of this month, we will be having another visionary frameworks workshop / discussion / presentation focus on healing justice. So that will be led by HALA, which stands for How Our Lives Link Together. And that will be with one of the folks supporting this work with me, and Evan and Mylana, Corey Green, and a bunch of the folks from HALA will be joining him. And one piece about that is they'll be thinking about how they use participatory research, poetry, and music towards healing justice. And I think it's beautiful because it really connects into and builds on what we just talked about today, because there is a lot of intersectionality with healing from, being a part of and oppressed by the prison industrial complex. And then in August, we will have another one focus on radical embodiment. And that I think is also, again, we're building on the healing. We got the research, the knowledge, the connection, and then we're going to talk about healing, and then we're talking about embodiment. Stick around for the whole summer, please. And then we will also continue to have amazing ASL interpretation. So thank you again, Toy, for being amazing. And also bring a friend, bring more people. Let's come on through. And I think with that, I don't think there's anything else. It's 1 o'clock. I just want to appreciate snaps, Ashe, to Woods and Andrea one more time. I want to thank Evan and Mylana for holding down the chat and organizing and supporting all of this. Mylana did beautiful visuals. And I think that's it. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Get some lunch if you haven't already, or dinner or tea or coffee, wherever you are, and come back and see us on the 27th. Thank you.